Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with another video concentrating on the UK rock band UFO. And on this one, I'm going to go through the first 4 albums I bought and tell you my story on how I felt about this band. And then in the future video, hopefully this month if I can, I shall rank all the UFO albums from whatever to 1, so you'll know what I recommend and what I see as my top 20, 15, 5, top 5 albums. Well, all of them actually, right down to number 1. I wonder what it will be. But first of all, I'm going to start with how I found this band. Now, let's go back to 1975 for me, 16. And I've just left school. I'm at that age now where I'm going into the city centre in Birmingham, meeting friends, going to pubs. Oops. Still 2 years too young to really go for a beer, but there I was, as you do. And, and having some money in my pocket from my apprenticeship. And so I spent the weekdays working in absolutely terrible hell on earth factories, picking up my 17 odd quid, giving my mum and dad the £5, and then what was left was up to me to spend 28p for a pint of mild, and records for about £2.25 for a single album, and about £3.25, £3.95 for a double. But I still had to be very careful. But I was seen amongst my peer group as the person who would go out on a limb and buy something that no one else had heard of. So it's no good to me to kind of say, has anyone heard of a band called UFO? Has anyone heard of? People would go, no. Everyone's stuck to the Zeppelins, Purples, Yeses and stuff. The other stuff that you only really experience bands because they supported a main act and you got to know them. We were in Birmingham one Saturday, I think waiting for some friends, and we were going to go to a pub or something. And it was somewhere near the government cinema in Birmingham, but there was a record shop down one of the subways. I can't remember what it's called, but it just had some time to kill. And I think my friend had just bought an album by Colosseum 2, which I didn't get at that time. And I'd gone in browsing. And in those days, you used to go through A to Z, because there'd be little things that said, like now in record shops, it'll say this, puts a little label, say what the name of each artist is. In those days, they just said, it just had a letter. So it would be like S, T, V, and then so there I was going through, I got all the way down to U, and I found this. Obviously, the cover grabbed my attention because it was a bit risque, was it not? And I wasn't sure whether it was, a man and a woman, or two men and 2 women. Didn't really, but it was just an unusual cover. So I picked it out and then looked at the back of the cover. And as I go through this, if I can, I'll put down, I'll show you the CD versions as well. Or I might hold that back for when I do the ranking stuff. But anyway, it will be there if I'm doing it, as I'm doing this live. But I could tell from the pictures that they didn't look like a pop band, and they didn't look much like a funk or soul band. Not that there was anything wrong with that, but I was looking for rock. And Let It Roll, Shoot, Out on the Street, and Too Much of Nothing, Dance Your Life Away, This Kid's Between the Wall, and it was just drums, bass, vocals, guitar. They looked like a rock band to me. And so I took a chance. I went ahead and bought it without hearing a note. Walked outside, friends said, what have you bought? I said, I just bought this. And there we go. Went home. It was great on Saturday afternoon when I got home, because my mum and dad were nearly always out because they went shopping and they go around the shops for hours. And so it gave me a chance to go upstairs and drop the needle down and turn up the volume and sit back and think, what is going to happen? And of course, we'd start with that whale of feedback, and then we're into that chuggy riff, and we're into, the opening track, which is absolutely superb. But of course, with Let It Roll, the magic of Michael Schenker, because where you think it's going to go and what you think it's going to do, it did other things. That were like those intermediate riffs in between, bridging a gap between the verses and the chorus, and the guitar solo, where you think it's just going to be a guitar solo, and then it goes into that melodic section and that guitar tone. Now think again, where are we? 75, Blackmore, Clapton, Page, I'm going to reel them off, Gilmour. We were still in a period of rock and roll history where someone could strap on a guitar and create a sound that was not like anyone else. And Schenker did that. You listen now, that's Michael Schenker. I think we reached the point in the 80s where everybody started to sound exactly the same as everybody else and have the same techniques and the same triplets and the same scales and the same tremolo arm techniques. Everything was the same. They even looked the same. But in the 70s, a guitarist could still make their own path. And that's what stood out straight away. As I was listening to it, and Shoot Shoot was the next track, and it had a nice simple riff, but great, again, intermediate riffs. High Flyer, guitar solo in that is to die for. Love Lost, Love Is Good, Out on the Street. I remember seeing them on the Whistle Test do that. Mother Mary was my favourite track, for opening track on side 2, because it was a really kind of juggernaut of a riff. And again, there's kind of little riffettes that Schenker did, to bridge as I said, to bring the songs together. Too Much of Nothing was probably my least favourite one. Dance the Night Away, another stunning guitar solo, and This Kids and Between the Walls was like an epic number with a kind of crowish slowed down shuffle at the end, but the instrumental just again showed that this was a just magical band. I kind of, to understand as I tried to research, because the only way I could research stuff this was buying Sounds or Melody Maker or NME. You couldn't look it up online. So I'd seen that this was possibly their second album, but I kind of I kind of saw it as being like Montrose. So when my friends said, "What's that UFO album like?" I said, "It's like Montrose. It's like the first Montrose album." It was superb. So as I did a bit of research and I realised there was an album before this, I remember saying to one of my friends, if it is like Montrose, and this is like their equivalent of Paper Money because it's their second album, and Paper Money wasn't as good as the first Montrose album, then the first album is going to be absolutely a blinder. So I decided to track that down. So off to Virgin Records I went, after I'd saved up my money, and found this phenomenon from 1974, released while I was still at school. And I looked at the back and I could see that Pete Way had the longest hair I'd ever seen. And when my dad saw this album cover, he looked at it and went, they'll never get proper jobs like that. They'll never get a job looking like that. I don't think he quite got it. But they had proper jobs. They were rock and roll stars. And I kind of got home. I loved the Hypnosis cover as well, and put it on. I thought, this is it. It's going to be fantastic. Now, I love it, but it wasn't what I expected. Too Young to Know is a great track. Wayne Mogg. Crystal Light was different. It was more of a ballad. It kind of felt different, had a different feel. Now, Doctor Doctor is seen as one of the best UFO tracks ever, isn't it? And I know Steve Harris from Iron Maiden, it's the music they had playing before they come on stage. I never really liked it. It sounded like Status Quo to me. Nothing wrong with Status Quo, but because Status Quo sounded like Status Quo, I couldn't understand why another rock band would want to do something that sounded like Status Quo. So it's probably one of my least favourite famous UFO songs. Space Child, however, the guitar solo on that I thought was brilliant. And then track 5 happens. Rock Bottom. I just knew straight away. I mean, the 70s was a land of riffs. It was a land of the classic guitar riff. But this one came out of a different womb. It was it was it was incredible. It was just incredible. 17 in Nature's Queer, you know what I mean? As Phil Mogg spits out those words, and off it goes, and it's just brilliant, isn't it? And it's got to be Michael Schenker. How old was he? 16, 17? And he comes up with a guitar solo like that and a song structure like that. It was just incredible. I was just stunned. I just knew that this was now, you know, when you find a band and you go, they're mine, because your mates don't know about them yet, and this is my band. I found them. I found them in that record shop, and this is my band. I've never seen them live. I don't even know if they play live. They're not big enough to. Their albums aren't on the charts, but this is my band. I just thought Rock Bottom was just incredible, and it still is, isn't it? It's always in the set of every UFO concert ever done anywhere on this planet. Rock Bottom is played, and it really is timeless, absolutely timeless. Eventually I turned it over because I think I played that track about 3 times, and oh my, good track. Time on My Hands, it's great, built for comfort. It's a nice blues, Willie Dixon blues cover. Lipstick Traces is a little bit of pretty guitar playing from Schenker, and then Queen of the Deep, which is a deep cut, literally. Queen of the Deep, that is a great UFO classic, real rock song. I love that. That would be, after Rock Bottom, that would be my second favourite track from this album. So it was different from Fawcett, but everything was forgiven because of one track, Rock Bottom. It just meant that I had discovered something immense. Now we roll forward to 1976, and this time I am in real time. I'm not discovering something in a record rack. I'm not rolling back to see what they did before. And I know they did other albums before Phenomenon, but I didn't know about that for years yet. But now I've heard through a little tiny clip in Sounds that UFO are releasing a new album, and it's going to be called No Heavy Petting, and I'm going to buy that on the first Saturday I'm back in Birmingham. I'm going to get that album. And here it is, another Hypnosis cover. I just bought it straight away. And think back, I am buying albums without hearing one track. I am, with literally a third of my weekly salary going on a record that I haven't heard. My faith in this band was just huge. A picture of the band. They've got Danny Powell on keyboards on this one. So as a new member of the band, so they've expanded. There's 5 of them. So the sound is bigger. Now this is the album that I pick out. The 4 that I'm showing you in this video, this one sits at the top of this little batch, without a doubt. I thought this was, I felt like, as I just said, they're my band, I discovered them, that they'd really delivered. They delivered something that was better than the other 2 I already had. They were on a roll, literally. Natural Thing has got a great guitar riff, it really has, and rock and roll chorus, whatever, but the riff is just awesome. I'm a Loser, Can You Roll Her? That guitar solo on Can You Roll Her? I think it was the fastest thing I'd ever heard. And to me then, it was only Richie Blackmore that played that fast. But the guitar solo, after those drums on Can You Roll Her, comes in, and it's just like, was there anyone else doing that then? It was stunning. Belladonna, hypnotic, kind of electric ballad. And then Reasons Love was a close relation to Stormbringer by Deep Purple, was it not, in his riffage department? But side 1 was just like 10/10. Absolutely brilliant. Now side 2, in retrospect, was weaker, but I just decided by this time that it was the best thing they'd ever done. So we've got Parano's composition Highway Lady, which is great. On With the Action, which is a deep cut, social lyrics from Phil Mogg, who was Very, very good storyteller and observational lyricist and singer. I Fall in Love by Frankie Miller and Andy Frazier. Andy Frazier for free. And then Martian Landscape, another track from Parnell, which was kind of the odd one out, but to me fitted in. And it was a great album, and to this day, you know, it is fantastic. Now, all of these three albums were produced by Leo Lyons, and I know a lot of you are vinyl lovers, as am I. What am I showing you in this? But the CD remasters on these, if I can squeeze them out of this box that I've prepared here, if it's possible. They're probably not in the right order, are they? Never mind. Bear with, because there's two versions of that. These remasters, which are from 2007, I think. Yep, 2007. The sound quality on these is absolutely incredible. The drums, the bass. It's nice to have the vinyl if some of you are thinking I must have vinyl versions. But these 2007 copies, and the little booklets that come with them, and the rock candy were involved in these. So the booklets are extensive and they've got great clippings and all the rest of it. Rock candy were involved. And there's loads of extra tracks, absolutely loads of extra tracks on them. They're absolutely fantastic. Now, Phenomena's also had a 3 CD version, and there's obviously another version of Force It, but I don't want to complicate this. But the CD versions are incredible. So I mention that because what happens next, as I bring this particular part of this video to a close, was Lights Out. Now, as I said, they were my band, another Hypnosis cover. But by the time that I'd worn my friends down in with No Heavy Petting, they were starting to move up the charts. They were starting to get more traction. And I think Chrysalis must have thought, do you know what, this band might make us some money. And so for this one, Leo Lyons was out and Ron Neverson was in. And this was a far more polished album than anything that had gone before. There were lots of strings, and I think the discipline in the studio and the songwriting, Too Hot for to Handle, Just Another Suicide, lyrically, fantastic. And Try Me. I think Try Me became one of my favourite UFO tracks of all time. It's a ballad with a guitar solo that seems to be in about 3 or 4 parts. The feeling from Michael Schenker and how he interprets Phil Mogg's impassioned and emotional delivery of a lyric and words that come straight from the heart is absolutely incredible. It's a high point in 70s rock for me and in UFO rockology. After that, we go into full metal mode with Lights Out, which is a thunderous mess of a track in some ways, but just thundering on with that kind of chugging, riff that so many bands have used. That kind of rhythm, galloping rhythm and written by Schenker, Mogg, Parker, and Way. On this album, of course, it's also the one that features Paul Raymond, who, again, I would say this is the classic UFO lineup. A lot of people think of classic lineups and they always go back to the first album, but I think UFO, that took them a while to find the lineup that worked best for them. Side 2 is Getting Ready, Alone Again All, which I bought the single, and Electric Phase, which is the B-side of that single, and then the track where my friends who were thinking, this UFO, Phil, are they any good? Love to Love. Everybody came on the tailcoat of that track, I think. I remember putting that in. I was quite late in learning to drive, so I used to do these compilation tapes for a lot of my friends. We drove to different country pubs and stuff, and I remember sequencing the tapes so that Love to Love would be on as soon as I said, it was another tape to listen to some new stuff. As I said at the start of this video, I was the person who went out and spent my money on albums that no one had heard of. And Love to Love, the way it starts, You know, it was just an epic song with the power chords and the chugging riff and the keyboards and the beautiful singing and melodies from Phil Mogg. And it's absolutely stunning. And of course that guitar solo, which is a race to the end, at the end of the track. A highly polished album, but by this time they were on their way. Next would be a single called Only You Can Rock Me, and then of course Obsession would be after that, and then the live double, and by which time it had broken out for them, and that it was all happening for this little band that I discovered just those few years ago. And I've said this on a previous video, but Phil Mogg deserves, you know, to be thought of more as a great vocalist. And the late Pete Way, what a showman. What a pair of strides he wore, those stripy trousers. I'm sure Steve Harris from Iron Maiden must have asked him where he got those from. But absolutely brilliant band, and with everything that was going on, they could have easily just turned a corner and just gone metal. But they were a melodic rock band, but a melodic rock band that had a different feel to, say, you know, in the 80s people say, oh, melodic rock, AOR. They weren't AOR, were they? They were a rock band, but they had melody and they had songs and they had structure and they had Michael Schenker. So they had components that stood out, that identified them as UFO. So my next UFO video is going to look at all the albums, and I'm going to rank them in the order that I think you, as fans, should give them a listen, and hopefully create a little bit of conversation as well, as some of the things I mention might not be expected. So thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, thank you for ringing that little bell, thank you for being here, and thank you for many of you who become patrons and helping support me make more of these videos. I really appreciate it. So stay safe, keep spinning CDs and records and enjoying music, and I shall see you on my next video.